Hi, and welcome to lesson number 1 about growth strategies. In this lesson, we will be talking about how you can implement different strategies and what you have to think about when you want to expand. So, first question is, what is growth? And what do we mean by growth? And what do you have to think about? So, first of all, growth is it increased sales. Many people will think that when you grow, you increase your sales and you increase your revenue, and that's when you know you're grown. But is that the only factor? No. There are other sides to growth, and business growth can be different things. It could be both increased sales, but it can also be that you create differentiated products and create new products. So then comes to mind, how do you create these products? What people will help you create these products? And what do you need to think about when developing and actually creating these types of products? The next one, and the next approach to growth is, do you only create new products for the same market that you've already been into? Or do you try to enter new markets to see how you can provide something to a market or to an audience that you previously haven't provided anything to? So that brings us to the next one, and that is, there are basically two types of strategies when it comes to expanding your business. And this is more a generic type of expansion, and the two are strategies that include ownership and strategies that include non-ownership or no form of ownership. So the ones that include ownership is, among them is something called swaps. And swaps basically means that each one in a partnership invest into each other's business so that you are linked. You establish a more reliable partnership due to having economical investment into each other's businesses. So if the business of your partner starts going west and not being that good, since you have invested money into his or her business, it is in your best interest to help them out. And that's what partnerships basically is about. It's about helping and aiding each other so that you both can benefit from the partnership. So that's swaps. Swaps is, however, only on paper. And what I mean by that is, if you use swaps as a way to expand your business and build partnerships, you need to think about what you will get in return. And what you will get in return is basically only help. And then you have to ask yourself, is help what I need now, or do I need someone that can produce something? So that brings us to the next one, which is joint venture. And joint venture is basically that you go together with a partner and establish a partnership, and you both together invest into creating or establishing something new. So that means that if you have an established business and your partner has an established business, you take some of the profit from both businesses and invest into something new, to creating something new. So let's say that you both have experience within growth and growth strategies and business growth, but one of you have more experience into design and the other one has more knowledge about marketing. So together you can both share your knowledge and share your expertise within and bring both of the knowledge and expertise that you both have into the new established business or new established venture. So that's joint venture. Both of these two, both swaps and joint venture, is something we call partnerships, and is the partnership type of strategies for expansion. And we have other ones, and the first one outside partnerships is basically acquisitions. The strategic expansion where you purchase another business. Earlier this year in 2016, Microsoft bought LinkedIn. And this is a typical way of expansion when it comes to the acquisition strategy. And acquisition strategy basically means that you, as I told, you buy or you purchase another business, and the ownership change so that you become the owner of the business. There are a couple of downsides to acquisition, but it also depends, or it could be downsides depending on your capital and how much money do you have, how your budget looks. The reason why there are downsides with acquisition is because when you have a business established from before and you acquire a new business, there will be overlapping resources. And these overlapping resources may be only producing extra costs than what's necessary. So let's say that you were to acquire a new business and you already had a marketing and sales development or division for marketing and sales. So now you have two divisions for marketing and sales, both in your old established business, but also in the new one that you recently acquired. So now you have to face the question, what will you do with these overlapping resources? In a case with Microsoft, when they bought LinkedIn, they actually made an agreement that the ownership shifted so that Microsoft now owns LinkedIn, but LinkedIn will run its daily operations as normal. Microsoft will only provide knowledge and help and oversee what LinkedIn do, so that they can come with help and tips and aid them along the way where they probably or eventually will face difficulties. So if you are like Microsoft and have a lot of money on the book, you may not want to change or dump any of the overlapping resources. You may also just shift the ownership and leave the business as it is. Then we have the next one, which actually is the slowest one when it comes to growth, and that's organic growth. And that's basically you establishing a new division or a business that will keep on growing organically. And depending on what your goal with the expansion and how fast you need the expansion to go, you choose from either one of these, or the next two that I will talk about in no ownership strategies. So if you want to just establish a business or a new division or a venture with a new product or service, but you don't really care about the costs or about how long time it will take, then organic growth may be the best one. There is something I need to mention about acquisition, however, and also about partnerships. But with acquisition, you pay the maximum price for the resources you get. And as mentioned previously in module number 1 and module number 2, resources is important. And when you buy a business, you buy a set of resources. And when you acquire a business and purchase a business, these resources are valued as much as they can. So you will pay the maximum price for each single resource. In comparison to organic growth, where you can acquire the same resources for a quarter of the price. The negative effects with partnerships is loss of control compared to acquisition and organic growth. The reason why is that both parties in a partnership will not have total control over what happens due to shared interest and conflict of interest and all of that. So that's the downside with partnerships, because you will not have total control as you would do with acquisition and organic growth. So these 4 are the typical ownership-based strategies for expansion. And next up is the ones that is no or non-ownership strategies, where the first one is licensing. And you're most likely familiar with licensing, and it's basically that you pay a given amount of money to be allowed to use a specific element. And this element could be technology, different products, or technology is actually the one most popular when it comes to licensing. And in the medical industry, it is really popular due to patents and on both medicine and as well as technology within the medical industry. So that's licensing. The next one is franchising. And it's basically that you pay an amount to join a franchise to tap into and use their brand. An example for this is Starbucks. Starbucks is a huge franchise that has headquarters in the US, and if you want to join Starbucks in a market where they are not that established, you will have that opportunity. You have to pay Starbucks an amount of money to be able to join and brand your business as Starbucks. But then you will tap into their brand, which is an established brand, and it will be easier to get a market share. So that's the upside, but the downside of the franchise is that franchisor sets the rules. So there are some rules that you have to follow, and there are also more likely that the franchisor will require you to pay a yearly amount of money on the money that you make. So I've read several places that with Starbucks, and in this example, that many of the franchises around the world are not going, or the revenue is high but their profit is low due to having to pay the franchise fee to the franchisor. So that is why a franchise can be good because you tap into the brand and you can leverage this brand. But the negative side is that the franchisor sets the rules. You have no control over the rules and you have no leverage. So these two are the most typical no ownership strategies for expansion. And when you compare them up, or when it comes to expansion, there are different things that you have to think about. And among them is how do you expand and what you have to think about. The first one is when you are trying to expand, let's say that you want to expand in your country or a new location, then you have to think about the culture. Are there any differences in culture and how do you approach them? Do you focus on organizational culture and let that win over national culture, or the opposite? Do you follow the culture, or do you customize your business to fit the culture in the target location, or do you say, okay, we will just follow the norms and the values, but we will continue doing things how we do them? There are an example with this, and it's actually a Norwegian-based startup company called Meltwater. And Meltwater is one of the top leading companies that acquire and analyze social information and market information, so that you can analyze the huge discussions and countless discussions that is going on social media and different websites to analyze your competition's behavior, what your audience is saying, and all of that. And what Meltwater did when they expanded, they actually expanded from Norway in 2004 to Sweden, and then continued on to England in 2006, I think it was, and then kept on expanding and now has over 40 offices around the entire world, in every continent. So what they did in the expansion phase is that they kept on with their organizational culture, and they valued the organizational culture more than the national culture. They concluded that people are more similar across borders than what we actually think. So they focused on organizational culture instead of national. They of course customized and and did what the laws and the values and the norms in the different places were, but their primary focus were to establish or continue the established organizational culture that was developed in Norway. And that brings us to the next one, which is competition. You should research a competition to see if your position in the market is taken, because depending on what position you take, you will achieve different results. There are different positions, and as mentioned previously in the previous modules, when I establish an e-business, I recommend doing a 3-product business. You start with a low ticket, then you have a mid ticket and a high ticket. So your question is, what position do you want in the market? Do you want high ticket tailoring, which is a high price and a tailored service or product, or are you going for a low ticket standard, where you standardize everything and charge a low amount of money for it? So your position is everything, and if in the target market where you want to expand to and your location is taken, then you have to ask yourself, how am I going to compete with that person or that company? Am I going to continue with the competing on the traditional parameters like graphics, hard drive, if you're doing a physical product, or are you going to introduce new disruptive parameters that will make you stand out from the competition in the same position as you? So the next one is actually, what strategy will you use when you enter a market? There are different modules developed in Sweden and Uppsala in both 1977 and 2009. And these two modules, or it's actually a basic model that was revised in 2009. And the model from 1977, or the model in general, the Uppsala model, talks about how and what elements and what process a business expands. And the model from 77 said that a business typically expands in 4 phases, where the first phase is ruled by the business focusing on its primary market, its home market. Let's say that we're starting in Norway, and we focused on getting market shares in Norway and achieving success in Norway. Ad hoc expansion as well. Then we go to hiring agents in a foreign market that will work as agents and salesmen for us in that specific market, due to them having more knowledge about the market than we do. So here comes the cultural difference. Are you tapping into customizing your business and your approach to the national culture? Then you do agents. So after you have established and acquired agents, you then focus on establishing a sales division. Then you establish a sales division in the foreign country, and then the next 4th step is establishing a production division. So a production is first home market, agents that sell for you, establishing a sales division, and then exploiting production. So that's the 4 phases. But as our society developed and technology developed rapidly, this model was really criticized. So they revised the model in 2009 to focus more on networks. And the revised version from 2009 valued and put weight on networks and the importance of networks, due to networks will help you tap into information, knowledge, experience, and expertise. And all of these things that you will tap into through your network will have an effect on which markets you and your organization decides to expand to. So the models are quite different from 77 to 2009, where they go from a step-by-step approach into expansion to a more dynamic one. So there are different ways to enter markets about the strategy. And there are basically three that we will cover. The one is called market entry, market logic, and market opening. The first one is market entry, and that's basically entering a new market from compared to your old one, but it is a market that is established. So there are two factors that we will look at, and that's technology and need function, or function for the product or service. So entering a new market is when it comes to the technology part, it is using an existing technology, using old or existing technology. So you're not bringing new technology to the table, and you are not bringing a new function. So you're solving the same need or performing the same job as everyone else. So you're basically going in to a market with high competition. And here is the question: how will you compete with the established competitors that you will be competing with? And then you have to look back to what we've been talking about throughout the 5-phase course about how you can compete in a competitive market. And the only way to be able to compete in a competitive market is through adding a new disruptive parameter to how you compete. You will not have a chance if you compete on the same parameters as the established competitors, but if you bring something new to the table and something new that isn't imitable and it is rare but also important, you just have an even higher chance of success. Then the next one, as I mentioned, is market logic. And when it comes to technology, you are introducing new. You're introducing new technology that changes the logic in how the problem or job gets solved. But you are solving the same need or performing the same job as always and as your competitors, but you're solving it in a new way due to the new technology that you introduce. An example for this is Uber, and how Uber changed the market logic when it comes to transportation and taxis. So instead of just using the traditional taxis where you call or send an SMS, you now just have opening your phone and your app, and you just tap pick me up. It is more convenient, it is cheaper, and it's a better solution overall due to changing the market logic to becoming more user-friendly. So that's a way Uber changed or expanded into a market. Then you have market opening, which is basically establishing a new market, opening a new market. And when it comes to technology, you can both introduce new technology or using an existing one, but you're introducing and solving a new problem or performing a new job. So you can use established and old technology as well as new one, but you're solving a new problem or performing a new job. You have introducing new type of functions. So that's the marketing opening establishment. Now let's take a look at the expansion map, which has the three ones mentioned. So on the left side, on the y-axis, you have technology, old at the top, new at the bottom. And on the x-axis, horizontal axis, you have functions or needs, which on the left side is existing needs or function, and the right side has new needs or functions. So you have market logic, market entry, and market opening. I will leave this one open for a couple of seconds so that you can see it and analyze it and think about it. And after this one, we will go through the entire process of expansion and growth. So let's move on to the next one, and that's planning expansion. There are tons of things that you need to think about, or not tons, but there are several things you need to think about when you want to plan an expansion and plan growth. And the first one is, what is your goal? What is your vision for the expansion? Do you want to create a new product, or do you want to enter a new market? Depending on those two, you need to take different approaches. For the new product, however, you may enter partnerships to find manufacturers or someone that can help you produce the new product. If you want to enter a new market, you may want to find partners that have market knowledge and have been into the market that you want to enter for several years. Then comes the part where what type of strategy will you use? Will you enter partnerships, or will you enter licensing or franchise? Ownership or no ownership, as I mentioned previously. Depending on which one you choose, you will either go fast or slow, depending on if you do acquisitions compared to organic growth. Next one is how will you expand, and what do you need to think about when you expand? And that's culture. How is your culture in your new market? How is the competition when you introduce a new product and in a new market? And how will you enter, and what's your strategy for entering that market? Will you enter a market by choosing market entry and competing on the same terms? Or will you introduce a new technology that will change the market logic? Or will you solve a new function or fix a need in a new way that will decide on you choosing a market opening approach? So there are 4 elements in the way we think about growth and expansion, and it's goal, strategy, expansion, market. And this is the cheat that we use when we at Social Upcoming think about growth. And we typically only do products due to being a business that is following the concept behind the theory of born global organizations. And a born global organization is basically an organization that has the ambition to provide a product or service to different locations around the world. And since we're doing that on a digital platform by having a web-based e-business, as well as having the language to be English, which targets a lot of audience, a tremendously huge audience across the world, as well as wanting to promote and provide value to different markets, we are a born global organization. And as a born global organization, we do not want to enter new markets right off the bat. We want to provide new products or services. And when we provide new products or services, we depend on knowledge, and that's why we do ownership-based strategies and partnerships. But primarily because we want to tap into knowledge of different individuals so that we can provide and develop and research services that fit our need, depending on the knowledge and the network and the people that we have access to. Then when it comes to expansion, we focus basically on not that much on culture, but we focus on competition and how we will compete with the competition, how our position is compared to our competition. And when it comes to strategy, we are typically doing the entry due to not providing new type of technology, or we actually vary between entry and opening due to changing the type or the way we solve the need. But we also attack a market where there are competition, but we provide some disruptive characteristics, or we provide a more complete solution or packages, and we focus on being user-friendly. So that's it for this lesson about growth strategies and how you can implement these ones and to further expand your business and the process of planning expansion. In the next lesson, we will discuss the topic of optimization and automation and how you can automate your business, what parts of your e-business can be automated, how can you automate it, and how can you optimize and partially also automate the optimization part. And we will also discuss why optimization is so important and how you can approach it. But before you go on to the next lesson, I want to ensure that, or I want to remind you of the quiz and the test we have at the end of the module. And since we're on the last module, module number 5, I want to ensure that you know what we've been talking about. And I want you actually to, if you thought that we went too fast through the different things, I want you to go back, play it again, pause it, play it, and go through the entire lesson in your own pace. Because depending on what type of results you get on the different tests and the different quizzes, you will get different diplomas. And in order to unlock your diploma, you need to take every single quiz. So once you are certain that you have a good understanding in this lesson, then you can proceed to the next one, which again is about automation and optimization.